Managing over your cash flow and cash flow forecasting is so essential in business. I got a mail and I was asked to give a bit of detail on what exactly is cash flow forecasting, how do you manage over your cash flow, and what will you get from that. So I got a question in from Jack Parsons. Jack is a really outstanding young entrepreneur. He's just set up a business, O'Kale Crisps. He's got a lot of attention and support around it. It's a really interesting product. I'll leave a note and a link to him in the description of this video. Check him out. Anyway, he asked a beautifully broad question of how do you manage your cash flow? And look, it's a good question. The first most important thing is that you have a cash flow. And that's relevant whether you're in business or just even in a personal sense. So a cash flow, whatever about what you'll read in textbooks or anything, it can be really, really simple. It can literally just be a spreadsheet with however much money you have right now, and then as the days and months progress, a record of every individual amount that comes away and every individual amount that contributes in. And after a little bit of time, you can kind of project the expected revenue coming in on a monthly basis and the expected revenue coming out on a monthly basis. And then looking at your cash flow can give you, well, straight away an indication of what money's going out, what money's coming in, what money you have, what money you might make or lose in the next month, the next month, and the next month. And that obviously can be so beneficial and so guiding to you as you're managing over your business then and there, but then in the months that progress, and it'll shape your decisions as you move forward. Now, I'd love to say I'm an expert here. Fact is, like a couple of years ago, I was sitting in front of a financial planner and they said, Jamie, where's your cash flow? And I went bright red with embarrassment. I didn't have one and I hadn't put it together. I suppose business had gone way too good for us, and so there was always much more money coming in than was going out. And so I wasn't as conscious of things as I should have been. That's pathetic, but it's important to actually be real. Yeah, I was 22, I think. I was managing over a pretty big business at the time, and I was sitting in front of a guy, Paul Keenan of Cap Nua, who was there to give me a bit of advice, and we couldn't even get to the stage where he could give me advice because just so many of the basics weren't in place. I think it's important to share that because, look, a lot of people when it comes to business, they put on so many bullshit impressions, and they pretend like they have all this in place, or they pretend that they're so bloody professional that actually hinders people from giving any decent, good advice. So, long story short, whether literally regardless of whether you're building a business, just actually in your personal life, it's a good idea to have a cash flow, because as I said, it'll shape your decisions in terms of your own personal expenditure. It'll actually show you where you're spending loads of cash, and it'll allow you to make really good savings. And similarly, it'll give you an indication of when you have a little bit of extra money, and it might off the back of that give you a few ideas on what to spend it on. So number one thing, whether it's just for personal use or professionally, it's a really good idea to have a cash flow. And I'd actually strongly urge on a personal sense to do it in a notebook by hand. There's just something that happens differently when you write and put pen to paper, that you think differently. You might think a little bit more, and I think that's really, really important with your own personal expenses, your own personal money management. After that, when it comes to how do you work a cash flow, you just make sure you don't spend more than you make. And look, in business, sometimes, of course, there's circumstances where you will spend more than you make. But I would make that the exception rather than the regular, otherwise you won't have a business very soon. For me, I probably, when we did have a cash flow, when we were a bit more financially organized, I was in a bit of a mess, and we probably went a few too many months losing too much money, and that hurt. It was really, really tough. So as a result, following that, I have a rule of thumb that no matter what, every single month we will profit. Even if that means me cutting off my salary, even if that means me moving some expenses around or anything like that, no matter what, every month I will make money. Even if it's 10 cents, every month we will see a positive result. And a lot of people would say, no, you should always pay yourself, or you shouldn't kind of be like that. But to be honest, if you're operating in business and there comes a time when you can't pay your salary, or you can pay your salary, but if you do, you'll make a loss that month. If you don't pay yourself that salary and you go through all the pain and suffering that not paying yourself brings, it'll certainly change your decisions going forward, and put you, I think, in a better position to make sure that will never happen again. I recognize that I learn much, much better through experience, so a little bit of pain and suffering will definitely make a lesson sink in. And so for me, in the kind of first months when I introduced this, and I did go through a number of months not paying myself, it just really realigned my kind of way of thinking in business, where I just said, no matter what, I'm profiting, and I will make the decisions necessary so that I can profit and pay myself. And I think that's been really beneficial, and I think it stood to us with the growth of Leading Social. So yeah, like I can't really overcomplicate it. I don't think it should be overcomplicated, and there's not too much more to share. Draw out a cash flow, no matter how simple it is. Draw it out. Measure out over every single cost individually. Don't pool costs. I think it's really important that you see every individual spend, because you can make much better decisions as a result of that. And then as you're managing over that, if there's an eventuality where you don't make a profit in a given month, make that the exception. But as much as possible, make sure you're earning, or you're profiting, and you're not losing cash. It's as simple as that.